Winston Wu and Mark Davis both started their international companies at the same time and became friends, but they had never met in person until this day. Winston had started a website called Happier Abroad, which was dedicated to guys who wanted to look overseas for alternatives in dating and maybe even relocate. Mark had started an international matchmaking company with live events to introduce guys overseas. As he says, you can't download a wife. Well, today is the first time they both met, and they decided to chat and share some of their thoughts on international dating and life abroad. Hey guys, I wanted to do an interview in this beautiful setting, and I want to thank you for Winston for introducing this to me. I just moved to Vegas. We're here in Vegas at the what is this? The Red Rock
Canyon. Yeah.
Red Rock Canyon, and he's going like, dude, if you live here, you got to see this, you know. So I hadn't been out yet, and so thanks for bringing me. It's a beautiful day, and I guarantee I'll be back and bring the family. It's been really nice, but I thought it'd be a nice setting here just to have a chance to chat a little bit and kind of get some background on what brought us both to looking overseas for ladies. And I know you wanted to do this interview, so I don't know if you had any opening questions or anything you wanted to ask.
Not really. But I just thought it'd be a great chance for us to talk because the interviews you did with me in the past were really good, and we did like 2 interviews, and only one was successfully recorded. But
I screwed that up. My bad.
Yeah, I wish I could have recorded that too. But yeah, I mean, I liked your interviews in the past. They were very positive and friendly, and so I thought,
no, that's great. I appreciate that.
We could do one with a beautiful view in the background here at Red Rock.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we talk about a lot, and you and I talked about at breakfast, is the fact that what motivates somebody to look overseas. And we deal with, various guys who come in basically pissed off. They come in angry at past dating events they've had, things they've done, girls they thought ripped them off. And there are things that in the culture are, bent against males. And I've done a lot of talks on masculinity and how the culture, unfavors you and these kind of things. But at the end, to get a guy to actually go, and actually win and find somebody, they got to then turn to the future. They got to look, okay, well, all right, so this is true, hate this stuff, but then what do I want? And where am I going to find it? So I'm just curious to find out in your guys, in your forum, who've maybe gone overseas and found somebody that they're happy with or sharing a life with for whatever period of time, what kind of helps somebody to say, transition to go from thinking about it, just being angry, to actually getting on a plane and say, I'm going to go check this out? Because what percentage of guys do you think actually do, and how many just talk about it and sit at home in front of their computers?
Yeah, well, I heard like only a small percentage of people actually go do it because it's easy to think about it, but to do it, is another matter. And a lot of people are talkers and not doers.
Yeah.
And also there's this fear of the unknown because, going overseas to find, a partner is kind of still considered kind of taboo because we're not raised to look outside our country for that. And in America, there's this assumption that all the problems you have here need to be solved here, not overseas. So there's this assumption, that we all have, and it's only people that can think for themselves or who are out of options that are going to look for alternative routes like global dating or international dating.
Wow, I want to camp on that. I love that phrase. I hadn't thought of it that way, but it's something to really chew on for a minute. Okay, so those of us who think we have problems here, think we have to find the solutions for our problems here. That goes back to, I think it was Einstein, that said the problems you have can't be solved, with the information, the guy, something to that effect. In other words, whatever problems you have today have to be solved with new information. Because what you had, what information you knew, got you here. To get out of this, you've got to add new information to find a new solution. Because otherwise, we keep trying to, it's beating your head against the wall. You keep trying to fix it, thinking, well, the next person will be good. And it may not be a person, it may be part of your personal development. You got to figure out what happened here, how you let somebody else treat you poorly in a past relationship. If it is another culture you're attracted to, why? And then start thinking about it. But I do agree with you. I respect a man of action who will go, all right, well, then what do I want and where am I going to find it? What do you think are some of the trigger points, though, that make a guy think like, wow, maybe what I'm looking for is overseas?
Well, for me, I mean, I was just out of options because I, was trying to date women in college and couldn't find, that special someone. And I couldn't even I had trouble even getting dates, and I didn't know why, because I grew up with this mentality that America's a very friendly country. If you're friendly, you're going to have a great social life, and
Yeah.
you're going to find someone, and it's
Mhm.
that simple. And reality is not always that simple, and
Right.
you're left wondering why. So you start thinking, oh, maybe I need to work out, I need to make more money, I need to improve myself, more my self-esteem, my character, But I find that, it's just a wild goose chase because, because if you're not appreciated,
Yeah.
what's the point? I mean, you can't be something you're not. I'd rather be who I am, the best of who I am, and be appreciated. And I find that in a lot of foreign countries, like the Philippines, for instance, or maybe even Russia, that the women will appreciate me for who I am, and I don't have to act phony or brag or act try to be something I'm not. And that's the best scenario, is to be yourself and get what you want, and develop a relationship with someone while you can be yourself. That's the best scenario. It's the most liberating scenario. I mean, because who wants to try to be something you're not?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's funny. I always said that I think the core of who our who our followers are, who are the guys who are attracted to us, are the same way. They're going like, look, if you go to the pickup artist groups, they're going to tell you how to pretend to be somebody for a while to try to make an attraction, but you can't hold it up forever. And ultimately, really good, sincere guys, whether they're engineers, architects, a lot of the analytical types, altruistic personalities, they all have one thing in common, is that they're always going to be true to themselves. And look, I'd rather be single than have to become something I'm not just to go impress somebody. And I
Mhm.
love that part of them because it's true, it's pure. It's like I'm not going to fake it. I'm not going to be something else.
Mhm.
But I think that and overseas dating, I think, does reward that guy to saying, you know what, there are cultures that appreciate who you are, what you bring to the table right now. You know.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just the most liberating feeling to be yourself and to feel appreciated. It's priceless. I mean, you can't describe how that feels. It's
Yeah.
one of those things you have to experience to really understand it. And I wish more guys
Yeah.
could do that. Because I think there's a lot of single, lonely guys in America, and they're suffering in silence, and they escape from it by working or consuming, or consuming alcohol, and overeating, and it's a sad thing, and some of them could develop mental problems. So I wish this thing would become more mainstream, so that
Yeah.
people could know that they have options, they have hope, and you're a great spokesperson and a mouthpiece for this movement. And I do my best to promote it on my website, so that there's just this passion in us to want people out there to know that they have hope, they have options. It's like a good news gospel. It's almost like a Christian gospel of good news.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I see it as a gospel of good news.
No, it's a good thing. In fact, it's funny. I was thinking about that. There's a scripture that says, "Without hope, people perish." And I think, the fact I never forget this, because the first time I went overseas was Brazil. I don't know if you know much about my story, but I was dating. I was single again at 42, and the last time I'd been single, I was 28. So when you're 28, you're hot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can date, and women want you. At 42, it's like all of a sudden you see what different like Zoosk or Plenty of Fish, what kind of women they send you to say, this guy,
Yeah.
this is my candidate. That's what and then you start going, what's it all about? And so right in the middle of that, I had a chance to go over to Brazil on a fishing trip just with a company. It wasn't dating, but at the end, the guy says, "You guys want to meet some girls?" We're like, "From Brazil, sure." And so we all had a chance to spend some time with these girls. He had preset to come meet us. He gave a wink, and 15 girls
Mhm.
came out, and we had one sit next to us. We're like, wow! And I spent a day and a half with somebody else, and I observed the culture, and I observed how we were treated like a king for a day. They were in tune with us. They were like, not only just, are you hungry, you're thirsty, but are you bored? What do you want to do? And it was all about me, and it wasn't fake. There wasn't anything they're after. They weren't asking me for any money, and I watched the culture, and I watched. At night they get on the river, where they were in Manaus, and the men would hang out together and have beers, and the women would be together, the kids would be playing. They came as a family unit, and I watched the guys. You've seen the Latin TVs. They have sexy women and all this
Oh
stuff.
yeah, I've
They have
seen
no
that.
problem with
Wow.
sexuality. They're
Ooh.
very comfortable. So they have bars out there on the
Mhm.
beach where they have these women dancing in bikinis, the music, and the guys are having drinks. And it was a very unencumbered culture. It was very
Mhm.
free. It didn't have baggage on it. It didn't have
Mhm.
all these. And I came back. My mind was just blown.
Yeah.
It was hard for me to
Wasn't
compute.
that so eye-opening
Oh,
to experience that? I mean,
you.
because it's one thing to understand it in concept or ideas, but
Mhm.
when you experience it, it's like you're born again. Almost
Yeah.
like in the Christian religion, you're born again.
Well, you definitely open
in
up your
some
mind
way.
to an entire new worldview. The thing that's interesting is once I came back and I had been treated like a king by beautiful Brazilian women.
Uh-huh.
Okay, the next time you get attitude from somebody here, you're like, don't even talk to me. I've had the most beautiful women in the world. Recognize my value and appreciate me. And what it did for my self esteem and self worth, even if I never went overseas again, I never married my wife, I dated differently, I behaved differently, my energy was different, and I just wish every guy would actually go to experience it themselves. I think it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the words can't just describe it. I mean, you've experienced that. My first, international dating experience was in Russia, and I thought I was dreaming. I mean, how can it be so easy and natural to talk to women, and how can they be so positive
Mhm.
and friendly? It's like, like when you talk to a girl in Russia, they don't have this attitude like, "Who are you? You're you're some type of creep." And then there's this
Right.
this
Wall.
there's a wall of ice.
Yeah.
This paranoid wall of ice. And if you don't leave, if you have never left America, you think
Mhm.
that that wall of ice is normal,
Right.
and that's how everyone in the world is. But once you go overseas and see that in many countries it's not like that, then you realize that it's not normal, and um, that it's an aberration.
No, it is. I've always said that. I said guys like we're talking about, the good guys who have a good heart, they don't want to settle for, they don't want to become something they're not. I said
Hmm.
these guys will find that they've just been fishing in the wrong fishing hole with the wrong bait. I mean, it's not that what they don't have has, isn't of value. They've just been offering that bait to the wrong kind of fish. It's like what they have to offer is of great value to most countries in the world outside of the top industrialized nations that are westernized in our cultures. And what you really bring to the table, because I had a date with, I went back 5 times to Latin America because after my Brazil experience, I thought I was going to find her in Latin America. And I fell in love with a woman in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro. And she told me this story over dinner. She goes, here we just believe there's 3 kinds of men. There's complete jerks, there's
Uh-huh.
good guys, and then there's a superior man. And she goes, a complete jerk is normal. I mean, the guy can have a different girlfriend. We know the men here are going to cheat. We just hope they're
Hmm.
discreet, because we know they're going to cheat. A good man, women can only dream to have, who actually wants to be part of family, who's committed to the family, loves being around his kids, who actually
Hmm.
wants to bring some of his paycheck home. And she says, and then the superior man is like a woman who wants to hang out with like the mayor of the town or a politician or a millionaire or something. And really, he's not the best guy because chances are he can have tons of women and they're
Hmm.
not valued. But just to have a good man, she goes, every day when I was married, I would wake up every morning and I would just think about what my man needed. I'd set his clothes out, I'd cook for him, and my thoughts were about pleasing him. And then I found out he had a whole other family with another set of kids in another city. But she says, just to find a good man, is all I want. I realized, wait a minute, we're good men. We like to have a relationship with a woman. We like that connection. We're not looking, for anything else. And I realized we already bring to the table what these women are really looking for. And all of a sudden, it opened my eyes because these women aren't overweight. They keep their fashion good.
Hmm.
It's like, and they would adore what I already bring to the table. I was like, eureka! Oh my gosh!
Yeah, and the most amazing thing is, when you're overseas, like in Latin America or Brazil, I mean, you have so many choices. I mean,
Hmm.
whereas in America, if you're an average guy and you're not in the top 10% or so, I
Of
mean,
heights and good look and money and
yeah, and
status.
status and everything. I mean, in America, if you're an average guy and not in the top 10%, you're like, you don't really have choices in that. You pretty much have to take what you can get. And if you take what you can get, it may not be always the best choice for you, or the most compatible. You're just like a beggar taking what he can get. There's that saying, beggars can't be choosy.
Mm,
So you don't have choices, and,
yeah,
and it all comes down to, well, what do you want?
yeah.
No choices, or one choice
Hmm.
every few years or so, or many choices
Right.
in Brazil or Ukraine or
Right.
whatever. You get so many choices. I mean, you could, be dating multiple women at one time. I mean, if that's what you want, of course. But the thing is, you can choose from a wider spectrum,
Hmm.
and and we all know that not all foreign women are honest and good. I mean,
Right.
there's good apples and bad apples, and
True.
there's some users and gold diggers. But the beauty of it all is that you have choices. You could choose to date a gold digger, or a
Hmm.
bad person, or you could choose to date a good person with good values. I mean, you can pick.
Yeah.
The power of choice. I mean, nothing beats that. I mean,
No, it doesn't. And what it makes you feel empowered. It's like now, you want to choose the best for yourself because you can. You have options to choose the best. The other thing
yeah,
I love about our guys, is that these are guys who think about what they want. So it's like you said, okay, so they've decided, maybe what I want isn't here. They're open to consider more things. And it's funny because somebody asked me, what's the criticism about men dating overseas? Because I've always referred to it as a noble quest. I go, why would you say it's noble? I said, well, for the simple fact that a man's decided that finding a life partner is important enough for me. I don't want to just take a chance I bump into somebody at a bar or at the grocery store. I want to be
right.
intentional and thinking, what do I want? Where am I going to find it? Then go do it. So to me, when we have a guy who considers going overseas, to me, it's the most intellectual thing. It's the smartest thing you can do because it says, I'm serious about finding what I'm looking for, and I'm going to keep going until I find it.
Right, it makes sense, because if you can't get what you want here, why not go here? It's like when you're shopping and this store doesn't have what you want,
Hmm.
why not try another store, or another place? It makes perfectly logical sense. And I just wanted to say that having more choices also increases your self-esteem.
Hmm.
Because you feel better about yourself when you have choices, and when you're appreciated and women want to meet you and get to know you, you feel a lot better. Your self-esteem improves, and that's real self-esteem because
That's
it's
right.
based on something. Whereas if you're in America and you have all these new age gurus and
Pickup.
self-help gurus and motivational gurus, what they're going to tell you is, oh, you should just artificially inflate your self-esteem for nothing. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, if I don't have choices and I don't like that, I mean, what good is it going to do to inflate my self-esteem or
Hmm.
confidence? I'm just self-deluding myself for a while. I mean, there's no basis to inflate my self-esteem. It's kind of like that, this nebulous principle where I tell you, oh, you got to have more confidence or self-esteem. I mean, that's just so subjective, and you can throw that onto anywhere, and it doesn't do anything because
Hmm.
it's not based on anything concrete. Because
Right.
I could have the highest self-esteem in the world, but if the women I desire in America don't desire me, I mean, it's not going to change that. It's not. They're not going to date. I mean, the women in America are not going to date someone they don't like just because they
Right.
have self-esteem. If
Right.
they're not attracted to that person, so it doesn't work that way. You don't. Americans tend to simplify things
Yeah.
too much to. Oh, you need to improve yourself and change your self-esteem, and it's nebulous. It like throws you on a wild goose chase. It doesn't get anywhere. It doesn't get
Well, I think
results.
I think there's aspects of it when somebody knows they're just artificially pumping themselves up. There's other aspects where I think of Law Jackson, a good friend of mine, who decided he just wanted to improve. He wanted to make himself better, and so he got in a
Mm.
physical fitness program. He got his body in better shape. He started studying and learning and personally growing. And I think there is a good side to being on a path to say I'm going to keep improving myself as a person because it was, oh shoot, what was this? There was a definition. It'll come to me later. The author who wrote this back in the 70s, but basically said to summarize what mental health is to the degree you can say I like myself. I like myself. I'm glad for who I am. I'm glad God made me. I like myself. I like the fact I can make choices and these kind of things. And there's a healthy part of improving that. There's an unhealthy part of not dealing with what's going on inside, but just putting bandages on it to pump yourself up artificially. And everybody, I think, knows the difference. I believe in personal improvement and doing your best, becoming educated, and all those kind of things, and advancing your career as best you can. So that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about like the pickup artists and stuff. We're going to say, just go in and say this line, and
Well,
that kind of stuff.
yeah, but yeah, that's all. The PUA is obviously based on a lot of false hype and exaggeration. But I'm talking about the self self-help
Okay.
improvement. Like, for example, I have a female friend
Hmm.
in LA who constantly tells me, "Oh, I need more self-esteem," and I don't know where she gets that because I don't lack self-esteem.
Right.
I do like myself, and I'm not suffering from a lack of self-esteem. When I suffer, it's because I don't have romance or love or
Sure.
someone special to
I see what
spend
you're
my time
saying.
with. You see, that's what's
I see.
causing the loneliness. I mean, if I pump myself up with positive thoughts,
Hmm.
like she wants, or self-esteem, that's not going to keep me happy forever. It may keep me happy for a few hours, but that's not a long-term solution. But she doesn't understand that
No,
because
I appreciate that example.
she keeps thinking that this friend of mine, she keeps thinking that the only problem we have is lack of self-esteem. I don't know who programmed her to think that way. If it's from a book she read, or from some new age person
No,
she
I
listened
could tell
to.
you. No,
But there's people like that. I'm sure you've heard of.
yeah.
You've met people like this.
You brought up such a great
Mhm.
point. This is rich. I'm glad
Mhm.
we're having this conversation because what she's reflecting is her expectation of what a guy should be. And this is where we have this conflict because this is where, and I've said there's like either the type A bully personalities or the lampshade Larry crazy wild guys are getting the girls because they're getting their rating. It's kind of like the peacock. They got all the flowers and they're peacocking, right?
Yeah.
And so those guys get the attention. So she thinks if you want to get a girl, you need to do some peacocking. So she thinks it's a low self-esteem issue. It's not self-esteem. It's your personality type. You don't reflect yourself in a way that's peacocking. And so for her, she's going, well, if you're not peacocking to go get girls' attention, you must have a self-esteem issue. And that's part of the thing that I love about going overseas. They don't look at it that
Yeah,
way.
and plus in the U.S., I mean, they mix self-esteem and confidence with arrogance. I mean, a
Right.
lot of people think that in order to
The
act
external,
confident,
the external show.
yeah, in order to act confident and to have self-esteem, you have to act arrogant, and that's not true because when you go overseas, you notice that everyone is very modest and humble, and people are not extremely arrogant like in the U.S. And like in American culture. Um, so I think there's this huge fallacy of mixing self-esteem and arrogance into the same in the same group, and it's not true. And
Yeah.
when I asked this friend of mine,
Mhm.
who follows all this new age teaching, you know and law of attraction and all that stuff, when I asked her, well, what if I had the highest self-esteem in the world? I mean, would that make you want to date me? And then that stumps her because she knows that if I could be the most self-esteemed person in the world, and if she doesn't have that romantic feeling for me, or doesn't feel the chemistry,
Mhm.
she's not gonna be romantically interested in
Correct.
me. So that proves that it wasn't about self-esteem. But I don't know. Some people just have a feedback loop where they think that,
Mhm.
and it just doesn't make any sense. But
No, but it helps
I
me
guess she
put.
can't relate either
I
because
Yeah.
when you're a beautiful woman and you have all this attention, I guess they can't relate to how what it's like to be a guy, especially in America too.
No, it's true, but you really kind of connect the dots. We started with talking about our core guys who said, "I'm just not going to be anything. I'm not going to settle for. I'm going to be myself. I don't want to have to become something I'm not." And what you're reflecting is a lot of guys are finding here is they're not finding somebody who will accept them as they are. So then, but instead of being frustrated and angry, let's go find somebody that will. Let's go where what I'm. And this is the neat part about, it's a deeper study than we can do right now. But to talk about the different programs that'll teach what are the top things women are looking for in the Western cultures, compare those with the top things women are looking for in these foreign cultures, is really stark. It's pretty interesting comparison, and what they expect in relationships is different. And I think that's the core of what we're talking about. Let's go find the match between not being who we are and finding somebody who actually is looking for that.
Yeah, see, that's what I love about you. I mean, you have solutions just like I do. You have real solutions that work, for any average decent guy. And these new age people don't have solutions. And what's worse is if a guy who has these problems or is lonely or can't find a woman, if he goes to a therapist or a psychiatrist, he's going to be prescribed medication like antidepressants or something, and that's going to mess up his brain chemistry, and it's not going to solve anything. Because the psychiatric industry profits from dispensing medication.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to try to put people on something, and that's not the problem. They're not addressing the problem. They want to blame you so that they can medicate you, and that's even worse you go to a mental health professional and they try to blame you and to give you some medication. I mean, that's kind of scary, because that's not what the problem is.
Right. No, and I think that's healthy to realize, guys, you're not alone. A lot of guys go through the same searching, is it me kind of question. And I'm going to tell you this, honestly, though, let's look at the other side of it. Out of population in America, what are we, about 300 million now? In the United States, not to mention all the other Western nations. I'm sure we're close to a billion in all the Western nations, but it's like most people are going to find a partner in their own country.
Right.
So I think there's something unique about us because we have guys that, for whatever reason, the thought occurred to them. They met somebody, or they, saw a website, your website or somebody else's, and they thought, "Wow, it never occurred to me." I had to physically go overseas, be in there fishing on a trip, and it was actually my second time over there before I even thought about, whoa, I could actually date somebody here. That thought never occurred to me. And so I honestly tell you guys, the fact that you're even having these conversations, I think you're blessed. You're a very small group of guys. Everybody else feels like they're trapped into their own culture. There is no choice. I just have to make this work for me. And whether or not you end up with somebody from your own country or another country, the fact that you have learned that there are choices liberates you to a lot of extent. And I think it's healthy. Early on, people would, and one of the reasons I started my company is I wanted a fellowship of men who found what I found, and I wanted to have other guys who would relate to me and give me a high five and be excited for me because I had nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, when I brought my wife back, was like, "Well, she's just going to leave you for a green card. She's just after the next bigger, better deal." And that was obviously not my case. I mean, I knew this woman; she would take a bullet for me, but who was there to be excited for me? And so I wanted to help spread the good news and help create a community of guys that what we have is very real. And for the guy who's drawn there, it's not for everybody. But if the thought is, if you've been blessed, the thought occurred in your mind that maybe there are other options, you're really fortunate. So keep pursuing that desire in your heart and find out for yourself.
Yeah, and hopefully this will at least plant seeds in people.
Right.
Who are just new to this and considering it. It's really hard to break out of the box because, like I said earlier, we have these assumptions that we grow up with that, for example, that, all problems in America must be solved in America. And another one is America represents the world. So anything that is true here is true everywhere.
Oh, so not true.
A lot of people, even in the alternative media, think that. Have you noticed that?
Oh, it's true.
Like even free thinkers in the alternative media and counterculture movements, they think America represents the world, so everything that's true here is true everywhere. There's this assumption, and most people assume it, unless they spend a lot of time overseas. There's just, and that's a fallacy. It's a false assumption, and I hope that it's broken someday so that people will know they have choices and they can feel better about themselves and break all these illusions that we've grown up with here.
Trying to bumping the table and watching it's
Oh.
tilting my camera back and forth. It's going to create a wiggle. But no, it's really true. There's a universal attitude. And you've gone overseas. A lot of people will look at Americans, think we're arrogant because we bring our values and we think everybody has to think the way we do, like the way we see the world is superior. And I found so much in like I said, about watching the Brazilian culture, the way they do things as family, the way they're liberated from a lot of hang-ups we have, and then going to Ukraine and watching the sophistication of their intellectual process, the way they value loyalty and things that and their respect for others, their awareness of people around them. We're so narcissistic. I found that some of the other cultures could really teach us a lot. But unless I'd gotten over there to see it, I would have remained in my own arrogance as an American, saying, "Yeah, we've got the best model in the world. Everybody should think like us."
Yeah, I mean, I used to be arrogant like that too. I mean, because when you grow up in a culture that promotes arrogance, I mean, you're gonna become arrogant, and it's just part of the culture too. And for me personally, the biggest thing is that when you go to a foreign country like Ukraine or Brazil or Russia or Philippines, I mean, the people are very down to earth and modest and their personality is very authentic, not arrogant.
Very genuine.
Yeah, it's very genuine. So it's just so easy to connect and talk to people and socialize. I mean, and that it's not just about dating. For me, it just feels more, like when you can get along with people easier. It just feels like you're not so estranged from
Now,
others.
for a new person like this, because I guess we're kind of by default we're addressing this to newbies in sort of a way. Do you have some places on your site for a newbie to look at to start thinking about these concepts? Is there a place on Happier Abroad?
Oh yeah, I mean I have a lot of content, a lot of articles. Now I'm doing some podcasts too, and I have a few videos and a bunch of photos and a forum. And I mean there's like an introduction section that I introduce what global dating is and why multiplying your options is better,
Hmm.
and the advantages of foreign women. I don't know if you've
Hmm.
seen the 15 benefits and advantages of foreign women page. Yeah, there's a
That's a
lot
good
of
place to start. Yeah.
introductory material and a comparison chart that breaks down the differences
Hmm.
American culture versus
Hmm.
other countries' cultures. So it's about life too. It's not just about dating. It's
Right.
about social life, connection, and the most important thing for me is the freedom to be yourself.
Right.
Like when I was in Russia or Philippines, I feel like I can be myself. I can
Hmm.
be the real Winston Wu. I can be who I am. You know, um, in American culture, which is more about predicated on phoniness and the illusion and hype and artificiality and materialism rather than connection. You see, in poorer countries, people develop social relations rather than live for consumerism,
Hmm.
and so they're more down to earth as well. And so for me, I can be myself around those people.
Hmm.
So to me, being free to be yourself is the ultimate meaning of freedom.
Mm.
It's what freedom really means. If you
Yeah.
can't be yourself, then you're not free. Um, see, in America, you're not really free to be yourself because there's so much political correctness, and you feel like you're in this prison psychologically
Yeah,
where
I've
you have
talked
to
about
act a
that.
certain way, and
No,
and
I've
and,
talked about
and
that a lot, where it's like guys,
uh-huh,
are threatened all the time, but with something could happen to threaten sexual harassment to their jobs, or you go through the universities, and this isn't true as much anymore. In the '80s, there was this big push where
uh-huh.
every major had to include a class where you had to take on gender sensitivity, where all men are to blame for all the wars of the world and
Oh
all the
yeah, I
sexual
took that
predators.
too. Yeah.
They're filled with the prisons. But I was going to say on our site on Dream Connections, I have a course. I do a 10-day free video course I do just to kind of get a newbie acquainted with the idea. And my wife does some talking about the difference in the cultures from a woman's perspective, I thought. So you want to get on the right side, picture me in a suit. It's just sign up here for the 10-day course, no obligation. But I think it's a good starting place for a guy who's just thinking about this fresh to kind of walk through where you are and why this makes sense. There's a difference I want to explain to both audiences in case your guys see this or my guys see this. Winston and I both started our ventures about the same time, so we kind of have that thread as our commonality in our relationship. But we have several differences, and a lot of his group are about expats, about
Mhm.
trying to leave the West and go to foreign countries,
Right.
whereas most of our guys are content living where they are, but trying to find a woman and bring them home. A lot of your guys are just about dating and exploring the world, and my guys are all about marriage. And so some of your guys will say we're too restrictive, and some of my guys will say you're too liberal, and it's like,
Mhm.
but the bottom line is, if for wherever you end up in your journey, just the point is we want to provide information to help you see that there's options over there, and listen to your heart. You need to find out what you want, what you really desire, irrelevant of the past. Don't use bitterness at any other relationship of the past. You say, okay, that simply has given me the freedom to now be open to a new option. What are my options? What do I really want? It takes some quiet time thinking about what do I want, and I'm going to let the truck pass. And the second thing is you have to be honest and say, what did I do to contribute to the past relationship that I made it acceptable that they could treat me in a way that wasn't respectful? Because you had to allow it. And so it's a good time to really bring yourself to another level. Healing, some self-cleansing,
Uh-huh.
self-analysis, and then
Mhm.
really think about what do I want?
Yeah, and I don't mean that people don't need to improve themselves. Of course, they do need to improve themselves. I mean, none of us are perfect, and we all
Sure.
need to improve who we are. Of course, so I didn't mean to say that we don't need self improvement. But what I was saying earlier was that a lot of people, like my friend and that
Right.
female friend I told you about, they think that improving yourself is the only solution you need,
Correct.
and that implies that our dating culture here is normal and there's nothing wrong with it, and with the dating scene in America, and that's not true
It's
because
messed up.
yeah, it's messed up in more ways than I can count, and I've written many articles about that, but it's based on the false assumption that everything else is normal, and that the only problem we have is self-esteem or self-improvement, and if you fix that, everything else will come together. And
Right.
that's an assumption that's not,
But
that's very often wrong. At least in my case, and
I agree.
some people, in a lot of cases, it's wrong. And
But I think the defining difference is that her definition of self improvement isn't external. It's you becoming the way she thinks you should be. Our definition
mhm,
of self improvement is deciding what do I really want
mhm.
and getting ready to go get it. So it's all good. Well, this is great, man. This is a great interview.
Yeah, I'm
I'm just
glad to do
glad we
this
had a
with you.
chance to
Yeah.
finally catch up.
Yeah, I've been talking to Mark for a long time online, and this is the first time we've met. So
In
we
person.
decided to do this, video discussion together, or
Yeah.
whatever. Do you want to give out your website in case
Sure.
my guys are watching this?
Yeah, yeah, no, again, it's dreamconnections.com. And again, on mine, the easiest thing there is just get the little free video course to find out more about what we do. But you can poke around and see what we
It's
do.
Dream
And
Connection with an S, right?
with an S,
Okay.
plural, dreamconnections.com. And
Yeah.
that's it.
And it's a nice site. You have a great intro
Oh,
video,
thanks.
and great videos and photos, and it's easy to read. It's not as messy and cluttered as like my site is.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
only have two things we offer on Tuesday nights. Every Tuesday
Mhm.
night at 9 o'clock Eastern Time p.m. we do an educational presentation. And the other thing I offer is actually going to meet people face to face. I don't do online dating. I don't have a big forum. That's your gig. But
Mhm.
we do introduction trips where we actually get men who are screened for wanting marriage intent. So it's not everybody, but we also get the women there. We screen repeatedly through many sources, and every guy gets his own personal assistant translator for the week. So it's a great chemistry. It's a fellowship. It's a life changing experience. Our Quest tours. So if a guy wants to go to our site, look under the logo and click on the Quest tours button. You can watch the video there and learn more about those. But I'm really pleased with what we're doing. We've had by screening and getting the right people in the room, we've had 80% success. Where 80% of a guys on a tour is going to
Wow,
start a relationship.
it's
Now,
amazing.
not all those end in marriage, okay, but
Okay.
they're real because they only met 5 days ago. But we have had a high percentage of those in marriage. We probably have 30-40% of those continue on to visa into marriage. So we've had this last 5 weeks, we've had 4 marriages. My wife and I have personally been involved in weddings. And one in here in Vegas 6 weeks ago, and then we have one in we've been to Wisconsin, and I can't forgive me, I get the Midwest, Oklahoma or someplace like that, and Indianapolis, Indiana,
Mhm.
and then now one next week. So it's for a guy who's really serious about trying to find a life partner out of somebody overseas. That's all we do. I don't. That's our niche. That's our thing.
Yeah, and it seems like you're taking off. It seems like all the everything's coming together.
Thanks.
Like you're doing what you're meant to be doing. So, the divine forces are
Blessing,
helping
yeah.
you with you and blessing you
Thanks.
in the meantime. So it's like you're on a roll.
Each of us find what we're meant to do, and I feel blessed that I finally am doing what I feel like I was meant to do.
And
My
somebody
wife
has
too.
to be doing it. I mean, somebody has to spread this good news gospel,
Yeah.
of international dating, and the more the better,
Yeah.
somebody.
I hope in marriage. Sounds great. Thanks again, buddy.
Yeah.
Guys, it's been my pleasure, and I hope to talk to you guys soon. Anytime, you can always shoot me an email too, mark@dreamconnections.com. That's it.
Yeah.
All right.
Take care,
talk to you later,
everyone.
guys.
Best wishes.
Bye.